This is Chill Bill coming at you live from Caterol, introducing another segment of the 10th anniversary celebration of Skylanders Portal Casters. Over to you, Inklander.
Thanks, Chill Bill. For this segment, we are joined by another incredibly special guest. We have Alessandro Briglia, who was the 3D character modeler on the Skylanders games, and also worked a little bit beforehand on Spyro's Adventure as an environment artist as well. And a little bit of your background beforehand is before you were at Toys for Bob, you worked at Activision on the DJ Hero game. So welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure for me. Thank you very much.
So, how were you introduced to character design, and what inspired your 3D modeling skills?
I start as a classic illustrator. This means a lot of brushes, airbrush, paint, and pencil. And I have always loved doing character. It was my passion. I was young before the advent of computer graphics, so my dream was like to working on special effect for movie. And during my thesis, when I was studying industrial design in Italy, a friend of mine introduced me to computer graphics. More than introduced me, he forced me in computer graphics because I hated with all my being, because computer are cold, you cannot do art and blah blah in this. Then my friend forced me to use it, and it was my doom. I start to love it, I start to play, start to send around some model, and the next step was to arrive to working for some company in Italy. They started doing game, and after 8 years, I make the big jump and come here in California. Working on character was like a dream, because differently to the classical art, you can see your character take life with animation, and you see in the game moving. It was like a dream job. I worked also as a concept artist, so for me is in some way a little bit easy translate, because it's something that translates from the 2D concept and work with concept artists, because I did in the past. And what I try always to do is when approaching a character, and also the same things that I did for Skylander, is just not take an image and try to replicate in 3D. Is also talk with the concept artist and try to understand what this character doing, what is how is move, how is react, to try to have like a little bit information for his behavior, if you want. And this impact a lot how they model the character. In the way they try to give a little bit a spark. They don't have just a photocopy from the 2D.
Yeah, so I mean, that kind of leads us into another question we had for you, which was, how difficult was it to translate a character from a sketch by Iway or by one of the other artists to a finalized 3D model, and how long would that process take?
At the start, it was very difficult. Skylander, I arrived in Toys for Bob as an environment artist. I wasn't a character artist. And then when I was there, I started doing character for myself. And usually I make a hyper-realistic character. When I started doing Skylander, it was very particularly hard, because it's a completely different kind of approach. I was very lucky because working with Iway was immediately like a mystery. So I start to understand how he think, and when he make a sketch, what does it mean with his sketch? What is try to translate the kind of feeling, the kind of life he want from the character. And this helped me a lot, totally. Skylander are, because they are practically creatures from Iway that he created almost all the franchise and look. In a moment you start to embrace it. It becomes simple, because all characters are part of the same universe. So you recognize sometimes a similar feature. We were joking a lot about the basic Skylander need to have the eyes close to the mouth and the big eyes and all these particular characteristic of the model. But again, as breaking the ice at the start, then you are involved in this world, and it's not just the character, also the environment and everything, and it becomes more easy and easier to understand and translate from 2D to 3D.
Nice. Did you have a hand in coming up with any of the character designs yourself a little bit more in depth? Like, did you help come up with the design and collaborate more on like the initial concept before it moved into 3D at all?
It was like some kind of collaboration. There was like at one point, they started from Giant. He was creating this team inside the Toys for Bob with animator, character artist, concept artist, and the line started to blurring a bit. It was a very fantastic moment, and I think also the success of the franchise for our side is that everybody has a voice. Obviously, we have like the last point, but he always listen to us. And I remember a lot of long lunchtime when everybody just bring crazy things. And it happened several times. This crazy idea were transformed in a character or kind of effect that we want from a character. So it's happened several times that we're talking with Wei about a character that is still in the early stage and give him some input that he can transform and morph, so at one point become part of the final character. And in this was like a very fantastic experience.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it's great that there was the opportunity in the office to be able to shout out an idea.
Yeah, again, there was a very great synergy, and all the character artist team, they were open to listen to suggestion, and sometimes we have like a pretty crazy and outrageous suggestion, and they never close the door, always listen. And again, it was fantastic when some of these ideas, some of these suggestion, they was used, turned, twisted, and become something.
You've worked on a lot of Skylanders over the years. Do you have any that stand out as designs that you're more proud of than the others?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I make so many that in some way, I love everybody. It's like a father love equally all the son. Some of them come out, particularly, I remember, for example, Chain Reaction. He was one of the sensei in Imaginator. I love him because he was very problematic. They have like this beard with all the chainsaw and how the animation and things, it was a very, very challenging. Another one that I remember, it was one of my favorite, it was like Swarm. Because in Swarm, I give more than just the model. I remember at the time my desk was close to the booths where they have the people recording the voice for the character. And I was joking with the sound guys, and they tell me, "Oh, you think he's so funny? You think he's so easy? Why you don't try?" And they let me try to do the Swarm voice. For me, it was just a joke, a big joke. And the thing is, they like it, so they make me do all the line. But at the time, you need to be an actor guild to make this job. You must be a certified actor. I wasn't. So they give the voice to other actor, but always they like my version. At the point that they find a guy that make impression on me, record all the Swarm line. So in this way, probably Swarm is the one that I can have more link, if you want, because of this story.
Wow, that's kind of sad that it wasn't able to actually be your voice, but that's great because you can hear the inflections in Swarm. So I can see how the inspiration is there, most definitely.
It was fun, and I learned a lot. That is not like so simple. Like it's not like, oh, you go there and you just talk. It's more complicated. Is a very specific kind of art.
You know, you mentioned Chain Reaction too, and Chain Reaction, I think, it turned out amazingly. He is one of my favorite senseis from Imaginators. His whole design is just spectacular. He's really cool looking.
I saw the character. You saw several different versions, and UA was choosing one and chose the final version of a Chain Reaction. And I was like jumping. Oh my God, I want to model this guy. And then they realized that, oh my God, how I can do the beard, this old chain beard, all this kind of moving. And then I was like, oh no, I don't want this guy. And it was too late. And I working a lot with the animator team. They were fantastic and they very supportive. Finally, we find a way to make this beard working. And yeah, I love it. I love this guy. Also, the animation they make it in the game was fantastic.
Yeah, I think he turned out really well.
He
so
did.
I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy that it worked out because he's a really top-notch character design.
Now, those are a couple of characters you're more proud of. Are there any Skylander designs that you look back on that you wish you could change?
Well, there is a lot of character that they have a version that never come out, or they're very different. For example, Ninjini. Ninjini was very problematic. When we have the first version of Ninjini, I fall in love with her because remember me, the Dream of a Genie?
Yes.
And I really like it. For me, it was like, this is perfect. I love it. I love it. And also the child love it. But we have a very strong feedback from parents because the character was like, the skin was pink and somebody thinking, the belly was exposed, somebody think strongly that was too sexy for a Skylander. So he went through several iterations, several change. We have probably 3 or 4 different versions of Ninjini. And we have the final one that I totally love, but I still remember the first version and how cute it was like.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting.
I would have
That's
liked to have
definitely
seen that.
interesting. Yeah, I know. I'm sure there's probably concept art lying around somewhere that Activision probably doesn't want to reveal.
And also some prototype. Sometimes I saw some picture of people they take inside the Toy for Bob. There is some shelf. You can see something. You can see that this is an Ninjini, and you can see the prototype because all these version there was also created toys, not like the final toys, but the prototype. All of these were created. For example, there is a lot of prototype for T-Rex. The original T-Rex was completely different. It was more brutal, if you want, more thick, brutal, and all this vine and leaf. And we have several of them because every time we have a concept that we were presented to Activision, we must do 3D printing the final toy. They want to have like the toy in the hand. It was a very important point. So we have all these different versions, different prototype of Skylander.
Yeah, that's just interesting to know. Like, I imagine that all of these characters probably at some point had to go through some sort of massive character change. How important was playtesting to determine what characters moved on to full-scale production, and what other factors were involved in that decision?
This was mostly in the hand of UA and also on the head of Activision. There was a lot of different factors that were at play for define which one go through all the process, and sometimes characters that are ahead with the process they were stopped for one reason or for another. Is from my point of view that it was a little bit down on the food chain. Sometimes we just receive this information like, oh, this character is stopped, they want to change completely because they don't like this and this. I am more aware about how the creation come from the top to the bottom than the feedback that come from the top to us.
Well, was there ever a time, I guess, specifically during playtesting where you encountered something where it was like you expected people to really love it and then they didn't, or maybe vice versa, where maybe you were expecting everyone to not like it and then it turned out to be way more successful than you were expecting it to be?
We have like a bot effect. We have sometimes character that we strongly thinking is successful, and then you don't have the kind of feedback that we're expecting. And character that we thinking, I don't know, maybe, and then they are like people go completely nuts for them. For example, the character, the enemy we created for Trap Team, we didn't expect that they have such a feedback from the people that play the game. They become so beloved at the point that in the sequel we make possibility that they transform them in toys and they play as in Trap Team as a character, as a playable.
Wow, okay. So the whole reason why we got the villains that we did in Imaginators was because they were perceived so well in Trap Team?
Correct. We have like such a strong feedback that it was like it was done. It was a question about we doing or not. Everybody was asking for. Everybody was crazy for Piñata or the other characters. So it was like to do for the next game.
Yeah, I was pretty thrilled when they made that announcement. I was like, oh great, they're not just on timers anymore. We can actually play as them as full Skylanders with toys. So that's great.
That does make me wonder a little bit more why Chef Pepperjack wasn't made into a toy when 90% of the fans that we've interacted with absolutely loved him.
Yeah, that's a question. Why did some villains make it in
Well,
and some not?
there was a very big question, a big fight between internal for which one we do it. For the truth, I don't have an answer for this. Also, Pepper Jack, I love Pepper Jack. He was like a fantastic character and an incredible concept. But again, personally, I don't remember how was the pipeline for decide which one go and which one not.
But that's interesting. No, so even people in the Toys for Bob office were arguing, oh no, it should be this one that gets that. No, no. It should be this one. That's cool.
Well, we want all of them. We want all of them. But obviously, because the problem with the production of the toy, you have like a specific windows. You can have like, okay, we can have just 6 character fight. And then everybody pushes on personal character as because he's beloved or because have a particular kind of gameplay that apply with the next game. But again, I don't remember how it went, who win at the end.
I guess kind of also going off of the villains and Imaginators, then what caused the decision to add in all the mini Skylanders? Because there was the whole line of the 16 minis that came about in Trap Team. So how did they come into be?
If I remember, and this is a big if, there was a point that we start to talk about pet for Skylander. We start to have concept for a small animal, dragon, cat, dog, creature. But the problem was like, in some way, there was this vision like, how can this help the main character? How we can define that this is a Skylander and not like, I don't know, a lower class of Skylander. And slowly we started to moving from the idea about the pet to have like these minis Skylander. They're still cute, but they can be part and connected with the giant.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because in the first 2 games, they functioned as like sidekicks, or they just follow you around in the game. But then in Trap Team, they got changed to fully upgradable, fully functional Skylanders. So that's cool to know that that was something that was a change that the team was wanting to do.
Yeah. One thing that was very important for all the Toys for Bob team, it was like listen what the people like, listen especially what the child like. It was our primary directive, if you want. During the production, we invite child, boys and girls, to come and look into what we're doing and just tell us what is good. And I can tell you, they are brutal. They are not filtered. So they can come and tell you, I love this character. Oh my God, I love it. And then look at another character and make, don't know. And they kill months of work in one sentence. But for us, it was the core. If they like it, is mean we nailed it. If they don't like it, you can explain whatever you want to a 6-year-old, a 12-year-old. There is no way. So for us, our validation was the people that play our game. So if they like something, if they ask for something, we do it. Imaginator born because mostly our community pushing for create his own Skylander, because we were floated by drawing and letter. They tell us, why you don't do a octopus? Why you don't do a shrimp cowboy? Why you don't do a lizard firefighter? And we listen.
I mean, I definitely, back when I was in high school, I remember sending off some fan mail to Toys for Bob. So, I think that's great that that the Imaginators was just spawned right off of that. It was spawned just right off of, we've gotten so much fan mail. Here, there you go. You get to do whatever you want now.
Well, the thing that you guys sent us was our fuel, if you want, because we have in all the office, on the wall, all this letter, all this drawing, and it was fantastic. He see such an interest and love for this character, and everybody asking for some incredible and monster or creature. It was the thing that pushed us to do more games.
So, how did you decide on the poses for the characters, and how difficult was it to come up with unique poses, especially for the reposed characters as the game's continued production?
How was the process for the poses? Was like it started from several sketches from Iway, and then we start to create the version three-dimensional in ZBrush or Maya, and we 3D printed them. Because one of the big things with the poses is you can see whatever picture, but it's nothing about when you're watching on your hand. You have the direct feeling. And all these poses was created on heuristic way: try, fail, try again. And everything, all the poses was created on the idea to have like a dynamic position, some kind of action, like taking movement, but always have a visual contact with the person that you have in your hand. So this was our core directive, and we try always to do this. The pose is when we have a repose or new pose for the character, we try to look for the new power of ability that the character have. So in some way, it represents the evolution of the character, the new power, if you want.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense because definitely as the reposes went on, you definitely saw more of their new wow pal kind of added in.
What were some of the challenges meeting toy safety and cultural requirements?
Cultural requirements was one of the big things that we can find, because every country have different parameter. So for example, if you sell your game in Germany, your character use a flamethrower, there is no flame, no people killing by flame. So we must change it several times. We changed our character to follow all these particular requirement. You have, for example, a country that they give you veto if you have female character, have a part of the body, arms, for example, you have the arms are exposed. So sometimes when a character is done, we need to working with the legal department to check that everything is fine, that everybody accepted the character. We don't find ourselves in some kind of problem when the game is done. And we take attention to all of these. We try to be very thoughtful about for every cultural reference and try to be respectful much possible. And for the safety, we created the prototype at one point for the toys, and we send the file to the manufacturer. They then ask us several changes in base of safety problem. One of the funny part is we make the prototype in-house. Before we use a machine that have color, so we can print 3D toys in color, but this was very fragile because it used plaster. Then we changed it with another machine that it was like a rigid plastic. And we send some of the character for Trap Team to Activision, and they call us back because they cut their own finger, because they have a sword, they have a weapon, and when we make these in ZBrush, we make this sharp, so they can call us and tell, some executive cut his own hand with the toy. Please tell us that this is not the final things. And then we explain that they're just prototype. And then the manufacturer take care about all the problem about the size of the pieces, and also that all the parts that are not sharp or are not rigid enough to create any damage to the child. So it was out of our hand because it's again a completely different set of skill, if you want. And we receive information from the manufacturer for changing our prototype to conform to this regulation.
When it came to printing the 3D fan-made Imaginators for that promotional thing where people were able to create their own Skylander, what was that process like?
Oh, a nightmare. It was probably one of the big challenges that I have professionally. And the idea was to printing these toys, but the problem was the shipping, because if the parts are too teeny, they will go break, they go destroy during the process of shipping. So it was a big work and a big challenge for everybody to make this possible. We tried different way, we tried different solution. And at one point, we find that the only possible solution, it was in some way, the manual way. So all pieces, more than 1,200 pieces, have an equivalent for just printing. So all the small part, all the problematic part that were modeled in the way that when they are printed didn't give a problem. And it was like an incredible work.
Just imagining how much longer that had to take to be able to create two different versions of a 3D model.
It was very kudos to our engineers because they save us by creating a tool that helped us to define which one part was a problem during 3D printing. It was like a big engineering problem solved, if you want, a problem that was solved by engineers, because we need to define which part is a problem. You cannot printing constantly every object and see if it's broken. So it was like behind the scene, it was really a humongous work. Imaginator probably it was the more complicated Skylander ever, because created the system, create the way to swap in the color, create the way that is working as a 3D figure and working also in game. I still think it is because the team, everybody was like top of on their own game. And I don't think it was probably possible. I don't think it's possible to do something in the same way with not the same crew.
From the interviews we've done, this feels like Skylanders was the right team at the right time.
Yes. You exactly defined the situation, correctly defined the situation. Yes.
So I guess talking about all the production stuff, from initial concept, from like the first sketch to the toys are finished, you have the final version of the toy. How long was the production process for each character?
I think it probably is the normal process is probably between 2 and 3 months minimum, because make the concept, have validation from, okay, this is the final one, this is the final concept, we go in production, then model the character for the game and model the character in the same time for the toy. Have like the character, the toy character, have the 3D printing prototype sent back, have validation from these, then have validation from the manufacturer that make the toys, because if you make something so crazy, they can tell you no, it's not possible. Then when we have a validation is what they call the penny war, because Iway and the concept artists, they were fighting, because they tell you, oh, this character can have only 6 color, and they no, we must have 7. So we must do fighting every time, because this color costs 0.0001 penny more, and you're thinking is nothing. But if you multiply for all the toys that you have in production, there is millions. So there was a very going back between Activision, manufacturing, and Toys for Bob to define the amount of parts, and the color of the toys. So it was a long process. Again, 2-3 months minimum. And it was like, sometimes it was very stressful, because we must work in a very tight limitation.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine trying to translate something from digital to physical, and also having to provide something that looks so cool but also is cost effective as well for you and for the consumer.
Yeah, it was a very stressful battle, because you must make everything, all this part of this big machine, all the gear working together in the right way. And when we arrived, I remember always when we arrived the day that during the production, we come out and then, we are done with the toys. It was a very big celebration.
What was the best part about working on the Skylanders team?
Working with the Skylander team. Working with such talented people is always, I think this is rare. In any kind of job that you wake up in the morning and you're thinking, I'm late to work. I need to go to work because today I can do this, this, and this. And it was what's happening in Skylander. You wake up in the morning and you want to go to work, because you go to work with friends, you go to work to something very exciting, and you're laughing a lot. Working for Skylander, it was not just the kind of job that it was challenging, interesting, and extremely exciting. It was also how you work with the people, how you work with the other department, with animation, with design. It was a specific moment in time that it was amazing.
What was an average day like at the Toys for Bob offices while working on Skylanders?
I think we start 9, 10 in the morning and we finish usually around 6. There was time that we had crunch time, but wasn't the norm. Usually we were well organized, so at least the character toys department, if you want, they weren't like hard crunch time. And during the day, we have like in the morning the usual meetings, but again, it wasn't so bad.
Do you have any advice for those aspiring to enter the video game industry?
Working in video games, especially in this time that is the industry is changing a lot, is look like become a specialist in something is the key. Like, okay, I make just texture, I make just terrain or hair. Is look like one of the best way to approach the industry. The problem is if you just stop yourself to be a specialist, you just remain only and forever a specialist. I suggest everybody go inside this kind of job. Don't put your eyes only on what you're doing. If you have, for example, is a modeler, learn something about rigging, learn about something animation, environment, light, because they look like different, but at the end, they're very important. They're part of your job. Modeling a character without know what the designer want this character doing or what the animator want doing with him is bring you to a failure because you don't see the whole picture. So my suggestion is follow your passion. If you, for example, like me, is a character modeler, become a character modeler. But always keep your door open for everything, for texturing, for design, game design, for animation. Learn everything you can, also if it's not directly connected to your field, your particular field, because these help you understand your job better, make better model or better whatever you're doing, and grow. Especially because every team, every kind of job have its own lingo, and you need to know what you're talking about. If you go to an animator and you don't know nothing about an animation, it's very hard for you express your concern or your idea to them or them to you. So you must to create like a bridge, understand a common language if you want.
I think that's some pretty good advice.
I would agree. As the first 10 years draws to a close, if you could say one thing to the fans regarding how you feel about this franchise and the community surrounding it, what would it be?
I hope one of these days, I know that is very difficult because all what is mean for the production, create a new toy, especially after a year that is the franchise is stay on ice. But I hope that at one point Activision bring back this franchise and the game and surprise the new player and make happy the old one to come back to play with this kind of little creature.
As a fan, thank you so much for all the work that you put into the franchise. I have literally hundreds of the figurines that you helped pose and 3D model.
Same.
Surrounding my apartment. It's just such a pleasure to get to talk with the person that got to make them. It's really cool.
I can tell for us, for all part of the team, there was a pleasure. There was nothing like when some class, some school come to visit Toys for Bob and heard them describe the fun that they have with this toy. Again, you guys fueled us. You guys give us energy and passion to go through all the things because how you love it, how you enjoy it for us was like priceless.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really, really do appreciate it. And thank you for taking the time to answer all of our questions about the mini Skylanders and everything. It's been a blast.
It was really a pleasure also for me again.
This segment might be over, but don't touch that dial, baby. Stay tuned for another segment of the Skylanders 10th anniversary celebration. Until then, this is Chill Bill signing off.
because if people buy nothing else, they buy the starter pack, and it's like, why do you need 5 stealth elves?